friends, and welcome to another edition of Transformational Astrology. And this time, the new moon, which is coming up actually tomorrow morning, is very transformational in its nature. So it's kind of a perfect fit. I'm always talking about how we have to recognize that what's going on for us is basically we're in the midst of change, and it is so easy to get stuck and to deny that change is happening, try to hang on to the past. I used to, when I worked with clients at times, I used to mention a child that doesn't want to go to bed and grabs every banister on the way up the stairs, to try to keep from going to bed. And I think of that as a very good metaphor for Pluto transits, that basically if you're willing and you understand that this is happening and you better pay attention, you better jump into it, and go for it because it's inevitable. It's like surf that tidal wave that's coming at you. It goes a lot easier. The difficulty with Pluto transits, which many people complain about a difficult Pluto transit, and we have a lot of Pluto right now. They say it's so hard. It's such a big change, and it is a big change. It is kind of the wrecking ball coming to some part of your life. And on the other hand, it can be very valuable. It can be very vivifying, opening up to new possibilities. And so it is important to be able to see the direction that your life is headed and to move in that direction. It's very self-fulfilling, and it saves you a lot of trouble, a lot of pain. You don't have to grab each one of those banisters on your way up the stairs. So we will like to bring up the chart. I want to say just before we do bring up the chart for this new moon, which is coming up tomorrow, that it is very profound, especially in its Mercury-Uranus connection. And Mercury is how we think, and Mercury's in retrograde. And Uranus has a lot to do with how we think. It's the way we tune in intuitionally. It can be rapid-fire ideas coming so fast. It can be rapid-fire conversation. Mercury with Uranus, which is what we've got going. And that's when Mercury is normal. Now Mercury's retrograde throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into this idea, but conversations can just go anywhere. So you have a conversation, and the next thing you know, how are we talking about that? But it moves rapidly through different perspectives. So Uranus is all about the impulse of change. Jeff Green called Uranus freedom from the known, which is a very good way to look at it, that we have consensus thinking, and then we have Uranus. And Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto were discovered starting in the 1700s. They were the beginning of recognizing the transpersonal, the modern approach, realizing that things were more than what we thought they were in this simplistic idea of a physical world, just a simple three-dimensional world. So without further ado, let's take a look at the chart, and we'll see what I'm talking about when I say Mercury and Uranus. So actually, I didn't do that right. What I have to do is this first, and then we go. Okay. So here we should have the chart. Hopefully you can see the chart. And what you'll see is, at first looks kind of mild because you see Mercury at 26 and Uranus at 25, so of Aries. So basically we know we have a tight Mercury-Uranus conjunction, but then we look at this little R and recognize, oh yeah, Mercury is retrograde at the moment. It's got another week to go. So on May 3rd, Mercury turns direct. Well, how's it going to do that? It's going to go slower and slower backwards, crossing Uranus, and there's a time when it will be exact. And that's not as important as you might think. And then there's a time when it gets past, about a degree past, and stations at the 24-degree mark. So that station on May 3rd is actually more important than the time when they are exact, because anytime they're within a degree like this, you've got a strong Mercury-Uranus presence. And like I was saying, this means you're open to innovation. This means unexpected events. Just as Mercury retrograde can be unexpected, usually not unexpected in a good way, but unexpected in a way that you're trying to make something happen and it didn't happen the way you thought it was going to happen. But, Uranus adds a mystical component to this because it is deep intuition. It is taking you into another dimension altogether. All three of the outer planets do. And also, to mention another outer planet energy, Eris is at 23. So Eris and Uranus are still very close together. This whole time from last summer onward, last June they were exact, last March they were again exact. So for about a year now, almost a year, these guys have been in close connection to each other, Eris and Uranus, and it brings out the rebel in both of them. So basically, Eris is all about finding your way forward, making a stand for what that is, what only you can go for deep inside yourself. It's a feminine warrior energy for soul intention. And so in connection with Uranus, it's a rebellious one. And we are seeing, for example, the Women's March on Washington in response to the Trump victory. We're seeing the Science March just the other weekend, last weekend, and then again coming up this weekend, another Science March, to say, look, there's ways that we can understand what's happening to this planet, and we can't ignore it. We can't ignore that information because it's vital to our well-being and the well-being of the planet. So that's one stand, and then of course there's the stand of let's ignore it. Let's not worry about that, and let's just go ahead and try to make money with any way we can. So this is a very interesting configuration because of the length. Right now, Mercury and Uranus are very close, and they have been getting closer with the retrograde of Mercury. Now we see Mercury, as I say, turning around at 24 degrees. So this next week, it gets to a little bit past, turns around, crosses it again. The next 2 weeks are going to be a very strong, 2 whole weeks from now until May 10th. Going to be a very, very strong hit of the retrograde Mercury straightening out, which takes a while also. Getting used to what that reevaluation was meant for us and how we might be able to take advantage of that in our lives, and then seeing Uranus in that picture as well. So taking a really good hard look at innovative ideas that could break us out of an existing rut. The whole thing about Uranus and Pluto working together is that Pluto is like the wrecking ball, but Uranus is the recognition of the need for change. So you see the possibilities, you get the strength to do it through Pluto, and Uranus and Pluto in combination, which they are still in square and they are going to get closer again next winter. They are considered to be in square until 2020. So basically we have radical transformation happening. We have also Pluto and Saturn linked together. We have Saturn and Uranus linked together. You can see that this Mercury, as it stations, is pretty close to a close trine. You can see that Venus, as it's stationed, back here at 27 degrees, and now it's at 29. This was stationed direct at 15th of April. So guess what? That 27 degree mark is exactly where Saturn has been. So we've had Venus square Saturn, Venus conjunct Chiron, and now Uranus conjunct Mercury. So it's a very powerful time, it really is, and there's a lot of hits on Pluto as well in this new moon configuration. By the way, the full moon that's coming up 2 weeks from now is going to be very close aspect when it comes to 20 degrees of Taurus. Very close aspect by trine and sextile to the Pluto. So, and Pluto right now is being squared by Jupiter here. Jupiter is also strong in this configuration, being isolated over here. It's considered the focal point of the pattern because this pattern is the concentration of the planets. And then what's apart from that is the focal point, the one that stands alone. Considered strong right now, making a square to Pluto. And then we even have an aspect from Mars at 3 degrees of Uranus, makes a sesquiquadrate, I believe. Yes, within a degree. So this is where we're standing, and we can see that we have really a lot going on. We can see in this April 26th new moon, and it will last for a while. We will see that over time, over the month-long period, the 30-day period of the lunation cycle that's kicked off right now. We'll see this Mercury-Uranus for the next 2 weeks, just like this, a degree apart or less. And it's a really powerful time, and a time for thinking, a time for getting ahead in a certain way. It's a time for deep realizations, a time for really evaluating where our lives are at. How can we use the innovative quality of these times with Uranus so emphasized, and with Eris as well, to make a change that is in more direct alignment with what we deeply believe. That's the bottom line of this rather intense configuration. I mean, they've all been, I've been saying every time, well, the new moon is very intense, but it has been, and they have been, and you can look around you and see a lot of the intensity. There's people fighting in the streets. There's conservative versus liberal polarization. The conservative and liberal is represented by Saturn being conservative, and of course Uranus being, let's go for it, let's go out there and do new things, let's see society advance, rules Aquarius. So it's very powerful. How does it hit us individually? How do we feel on an individual level with the new moon in Taurus? We're very much aware of ourselves at a very personal level. We're in our bodies. We're aware that what our bodies are telling us may be an important message. If you're feeling bad in some way, it may be an important message. The channel being Abraham, I love this quote. It's one of the best things I've ever heard. If you have a problem and you ignore that problem, don't worry, it'll get worse. And, so we need to pick up on the signals. And they could come in a number of ways. They could come in the form of relationship. There's a lot of relationship stuff going on right now. With Libra emphasized, with Venus a degree away from crossing into Aries, Mars' sign. So, there's just a lot of energy in all directions. And like I say, the message could come from a lover or a close friend or a business partnership. It could come through your work. You suddenly get a promotion, and what does that tell you? Or you suddenly get fired, and what does that tell you? People come away from being fired and they say, oh, this was the worst thing that ever happened. And then looking back 5 years later, they say, oh, that was the best thing that ever happened. So, there's a lot of ways to look at your life. And Jupiter, the optimist, right? Jupiter gives us a good feeling for, hey, let's really make an effort to see the glass as half full, to see the beauty that life has to offer us. And that's very important. So I want to mention a couple things. I think that's a pretty good summary here. And if we have any really poignant comments on the Facebook messages, the comments, I'll address that. But I did want to mention this Turning Point Summit. You've seen it maybe in the newsletters, if you've been looking at the newsletters we've been sending out. This is kind of interesting because Dustin Urban decided to do this summit on finding your deep purpose, finding your soul intention and acting on that. And, maybe he was motivated by his own Eris. I mean, it is a very strong Eris time as well. And, of course, he stumbled across my work, which was one reason I was included in this, because there's such a parallel message. I mean, I'm always saying a lot of Eris-Uranus right now. Ever since last summer, it's really time to stand up and be counted. I talked about Standing Rock quite a bit. I mentioned a couple of minutes ago the Women's March on Washington as a signal for, you don't have to knuckle under. You don't have to be upset about the way things are going, because you can decide how you feel. And once you decide, you can take action as appropriate. If you may not have to do anything, but at least you know where you stand, and that's so important. And it takes you out of that realm of the victim where you don't really have a firm idea of what you want and what you can do about it. You feel powerless. But when you do tune into your own purpose, it's a powerful thing. It's a wonderful thing. And so by coincidence, Dustin came up with this Turning Point Summit, and he's interviewing a whole bunch of people on the same topic. Be interesting to see the charts involved. Having heard some of the interviews, I haven't heard the interviews yet. It's coming up this week. The first one, and the first one, by the way, tomorrow is going to be with Thomas More, wonderful, deep thinking psychologist who's also open to astrology. Very, very interesting guy. So that was one thing I wanted to mention, and we will include a link at the bottom so you can follow it to see what he's up to and to see his description of the interviews that he's compiled for this Turning Point Summit, he calls it. And then I wanted to mention also my own book, The 10th Planet. I don't always push The 10th Planet, but the book that is, but I do mention Eris quite frequently, and that is the resource if you want to know how my thinking evolved on it, if you want to know where I got the idea and how I developed it, and pretty much, I think actually really presented so much evidence that it's kind of a conclusive, including you can go to the back of the book and see the Eris interpretations, or you can go to the Time Passages software and see the Eris interpretations. And it is really, I get so much feedback on that by house position or by connection to a natal planet, Eris is always very powerful in charts. So that's what I have to offer you, and I guess is there anybody sending anything sincere in there?
One person asked what your necklace is made of.
Oh. Well, this necklace is actually interesting because it's diachroic glass, but it's something called the Rejuvenator that Phyllis Light does. She's a energy healer. And it's a good thing. It's supposed to protect my aura, basically. So this is, I chuckle because I don't know how many people are going to tune into that and say, oh, yeah, of course, it protects his aura. But I find it very effective, and I like it. So I'm sold on it. And it does attract a lot of attention at parties. People frequently say, whoa, that's really, they kind of feel the energy, I think, emanating from it. Well, that's about all we have for you. I think we covered everything. Well, the Time Passages software, of course, does have the Eris interpretations. It has very handy ways to navigate. If you want to see transits for right now, you do that. And then you see them to your natal chart, of course. If you want to see parallels, you can right-click or control-click and see the parallels that Saturn makes to both Mars and to Pluto right now. With Pluto, you can see it also connects to Mars. So, these are very, very valuable looking at the declinations. It's another way of seeing connections between planets, just as good as seeing the sesqui between Mars and Pluto as seeing the parallel between Mars and Pluto. A lot of techniques in here, too many really to describe it by, all the standard techniques are here, including midpoints and Arabic parts and things of that nature, more esoteric material. So you can actually learn more about astrology as you go. Even if you're a beginner, you can learn how to read charts by working with the software. Kind of a very good self-teaching course, and of course also a way of just examining your own chart and seeing what we say, what the astrologers would say about your chart, the planetary positions, and this, as well, the position of this new planet, Eris, which not too many astrologers have tuned into yet, although there's more and more kind of getting on the bandwagon. The Mountain Astrologer is starting to put Eris into its major new moon and full moon charts in some articles as well. So, Eris is a coming thing, and I think it's very interesting to get tuned into it. And this is a very strong chart. Really all the outer planets are in this chart. So let me switch back. And I just want to close, we have to wind up, but I just want to close by saying that, these are powerful times, and powerful times call for a powerful response. And you can feel like you're being grinded under the wheels of this massive change that's taking place in society around you, and maybe feel like something's happening in your own life that's difficult to handle. But if you turn your perspective around, which is what Mercury retrograde is really good for, and Uranus, and see it from another angle, you can maybe see, this has been really building for a long time, and if I get on the bandwagon and I really go with this change, I could be in a better place in my life. And that's what it's really all about. That's, the transformation of our times. That's the Uranus-Pluto transformation of this decade. And, well, as my friend Alan Oken says, it's the only game in town. At least it's the only game worth playing. So that's it for now, and have a good couple of weeks. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.